Because it's just interesting because as you're speaking, it sounds like those things will actually lead you away from God, lead you away from church,
100%.
because it's like you haven't really been in a community that's truly, they're manipulating their God-given gifts and authority.
Yes.
And that happens in the church, but that also can turn people away. Like, I don't want this.
Oh.
That happened to me. Like,
And it did.
Being in the church and seeing things not done right, and then you turn away.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't for me. Like, I don't want to be a part of this if this is what this is. So how did you not lose your faith in those circumstances with joining the cult, and then, you know, trusting in someone in the prophetic gift, and then start manipulating, and now I have to be your wife, or I'm...
And that's what came next.
Okay.
Right. So like in that situation where that was second situation where he wanted me to start calling him my dad, like daddy, his dad. And then he had another woman that he married that came from like brokenness as well. And then another young woman around my age started living with him that was there. And I would be the third, you know, that would be.
So like polygamy or what?
I don't know if it was a romantic. I didn't go that far. I don't know. I know the one woman was his wife and the other woman was, he said a woman he was taking care of or adopting or whatever the case may be, adopted into his family. But I don't know.
Right.
You know,
right.
All I know is that at that point, he wanted me to be his dad. Like, he wanted me to call him daddy. He wanted me to be in like around. I was driving. You have to understand. I was driving from my school to his home. It's 2 hours back and forth. I was there every Sunday. As soon as it opened, I was gone in the evening. I would drive 2 hours back to my school, and I did that every Sunday. And I mean, it was for months that this occurred until, again, another falling of grace moment where there was something he was supposed to do that he did not do. And there was like a accumulation of things.
Yeah.
But like that was the moment where he was supposed to do something. My family was getting worried about me.
Yeah.
My mom was concerned. She's like, this is getting too far. Like it's just becoming like you're unrecognizable. And so.
Wow. So how did you come out of that? How did you come out of that and still have your faith and belief?
I didn't.
Okay.
That's my point. I didn't. I left there and I was like, once he failed me and I really understood that I was being manipulated.
Yeah.
I turned away from the faith.
Yeah.
For sure turned away from the faith.
Yeah, that'll do it.
You couldn't talk to me for 2 years. A year and a half. I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years. But you couldn't talk to me about God for about a year and a half.
So then how'd you come back?
That's a great story. So like I moved. So after I graduated, I moved and I remember I was in Stone Mountain, and that's important because the way that the sky is around Stone Mountain. So I was living in that area. Every time a sunset would happen, I just felt a pulling. Like, talk to me. I'm like, did I eat something? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I just needed to eat something. Like, I just was trying to ignore the pull. I had gone my own way. I was not happy going my own way. Regardless of what we think it is, going out, doing whatever you want to do, it is not fulfilling. It just isn't. So I'm going through driving. I just hear God wanting me to talk to him. Talk to me. And I don't identify it as God at the time. I'm thinking there's something wrong with me.
Right.
You know, so I'm like, okay, I don't know.
How was God speaking to you?
It was like I describe it as a voice that is like mine, but not mine in my spirit. And it's strong, it's confident, it's sure, and it comes with peace.
Period.
So, but it's not, like, if it doesn't come with peace, it's not God.
Yeah.
So, and I've, like, learned God's voice over the years.
Yeah.
So I'm driving, he's like, talk to me. And this goes on for a period of time, and I don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I go to get my hair done.
Yeah.
At a Dominican salon. I don't speak no Spanish. Okay, so I'm in the salon. And so I always call my mom.
What is your nationality? Just curious.
So my mom is Ecuadorian and Jamaican. My dad is white.
Okay.
So I say, to make it easier, Black, white, and Hispanic.
Okay.
But I go into the salon. My mom speaks fluent Spanish.
Okay.
So I put her on the phone. I said, Mom, let them know what I want to get done. She does it. I get my hair done. There's a woman that's sitting next to me. I don't know it at the time, but she's a pastor.
Yeah.
So she's there, but she don't speak no English. I know that because like when I'm speaking, she doesn't understand anything I'm saying.
Right.
She turns to me in perfect English and says, God wants to talk to you. Perfect. Like I understood every word that woman said.
Right.
God wants to talk to you. He's been trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
That jarred me.
Yeah.
Because this woman who can't speak no English just spoke to me in perfect English and described a feeling I knew I had been feeling. Right? At that moment, I realized, okay, God wants to talk to me.
Yeah.
And he's been trying to talk to me. And so I go in my car after the appointment. It's sunset again. Happens to be sunset, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
Like, I think about that moment now. I don't even know what to say.
Wow.
Because it was just so, like, it had been so much in my life from, homelessness. I've been assaulted. All these different things, these different things that happened in my life.
He kept you. He kept it all.
He did.
Like.
He did. He did.
Wow.
And so I leave that. I go, I drive into it. I'm like, I understood now at that moment what God was teaching me. You can never put man on a pedestal.
Yeah.
God is the only person, the only being that belongs on a pedestal. I will never put a man of God on a pedestal. I will not put somebody who's a prophet on a pedestal. You have the same spirit within you that they have within them. And if it does not resonate with your spirit, that's not God. Because God speaks to you just like he can speak to me. Right?
That's right.
And so I don't put beings on pedestals.
That's right.
I put beings. We're all mere mortals.
Made of dust.
Right. We're all mere mortals.
Yes.
To dust and back to dust.
Yes.
So I realized that you've been trying to seek me. Don't go through another conduit to seek me. You don't have to. And that doesn't mean you don't belong to a church or anything like that. And I don't have any opinions about that.
I think I personally believe that you should join a church once you have your own relationship with God.
That's I understand that.
Because there's so much deception.
It is.
You have to be in relationship. God has to lead you to where the community that he wants you to be. Because I believe church is good for community. It says that we should fellowship with like-minded believers.
Right.
And I've experienced not being in a community, being in a community. I've been in all aspects along my journey. I've been not in the church for years, and I recently came back to a place that I felt that God was leading me to, and the Holy Spirit was there. Hi, family. So this portion of the podcast is sponsored by Rev Air. If you're unfamiliar with Rev Air, they are a high-tech beauty company, and they specialize in their reverse air hair dryer. When it's time to record the podcast, I like to try different minimal heat styles. I'm a natural hair girl. This is my real hair. My natural texture is curly. So I like to protect my curls. And so Rev Air hair dryer helps me to do that and helps me to achieve these minimal heat looks like this one today. So we're actually just going to show you guys how we achieve this look. So my hair started off in a bun, in a curly bun, a little nappy. I use all of Rev Air products. Who knew they had a whole product line? So he started off doing a scalp massage using their detox pre-wash rinse. Absolutely loved. Then we went in with the shampoo. We used the revitalizing shampoo, which boosts length, density, and fullness. Then we did the deep condition with the deep conditioning treatment. I sat under the dryer for 30 minutes, and then we started blow drying. He did detangle me using the hydrating leave-in conditioning spray, which you see it in the back there, and then we blow dried it out. There is my hair. He put it in the sections, and we are using the Rev Air blow dryer to blow dry me out. And I really loved
the whole product line and the dryer, I use the Boost Fullness hair growth regimen with the cleanse conditioner and the leave-in conditioning treatment, and it really left my hair full. Sometimes heat can leave your hair thin and just flat, but I really love the fullness and the volume that I had. So there was what my hair looked like, all straightened out using the Rev Air dryer. And then we did a little style with the curling iron just to put a little bit of heat, and that's how my hair looked with the burrow curls, a little heat, minimal heat style, and then there's the final look. Make sure you use code Jordan10 to get money off your order.
And so I just think that you need to be in relationship. Like, that's number one.
You do. Because to your point, I was very manipulated.
You'll be manipulated. If you don't have any, you'll be gone with the wind.
Gone with
tossed
the
to and fro.
Yeah, because I say that to people all the time. When you get so consumed with a specific conduit, like my church, I got to go to my, like, it's
right.
Like God can speak through anything and anyone. He doesn't. Right. He spoke through a bush.
Right.
He spoke through a donkey. He spoke through different things throughout the Bible. He can speak through the wind. He can speak through anything.
Child.
Oh, he can speak through children. Absolutely. Samuel was a young child when he was first spoken to by God. Like, right. God is not limited by anything. And so I think that a lot of religion, honestly, in my opinion, has really, we're imperfect. And so we're going to do things imperfectly. Yes. And with that being said, we have the church. And I think the church at its origin was meant to be a perfect thing. But we're people. So we've tainted, I even think we've tainted translations of the word. Like how we are imperfect in understanding what God is doing. Like, we're imperfect in all of our ways. Yeah. That's why we needed a savior.
Yeah.
So as I've studied, when I came back to the faith, I got really gung-ho about it.
Yeah.
And I was in therapy at the time as well. I was because I was also dealing with sleep issues. Yeah. Like I believe the enemy was attacking me in my sleep.
Oh yeah, for sure. And no peace.
Yeah. I had
disturbance.
A crazy fear of death. Like it was like I could not sleep because I was afraid I wasn't gonna wake up. Like I just wouldn't sleep. And I was just afraid when the lights went off. I was terrified. And I felt bed shaking, all that stuff. Like, and mind you, I wasn't in the phase. Like I was like in the in between phase of this.
Okay.
Like, I'm like getting back into it.
Okay.
And now I have this.
How'd you overcome that? How did you overcome that fear? Because God didn't give us the spirit of fear. Obviously, that was an attack from the enemy. So
I've been, the enemy had a target on my back. I don't know what.
Oh, yeah. You're one of them ones. He's going to target you.
Yeah, well, that's it. So I don't know what made me do it, but something told me, and I believe it's the Holy Spirit, something told me to worship, put on worship music at night. Mm. And so whenever I started to have that feeling, I would worship. And or at least play worship music.
Yeah.
Stopped. It stopped. The attacks at night stopped. And I learned, and I don't remember exact, because I don't remember being at a church at
worship is a weapon.
Worship is a weapon.
Yeah.
It for sure is a weapon.
Yeah.
I know that now at this age.
Yeah.
But
worship is a weapon.
Back then, I didn't realize how powerful it was.
Right.
And rebuking things and casting things down in the name of Jesus. I didn't need to get somebody to come in and do that for me. Yeah. I could do it myself.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, this works. I'm like, okay, God. And so I started sleeping normally again. I was getting into my therapy thing and getting my own therapy while doing therapy as well. So
I was going to ask, how does like your faith play a role in your therapy?
So
as a therapist,
here's my thing. Mm-hmm. So I stopped doing one-on-one therapy a while ago. I do coaching.
Okay.
But
what do you coach? What's your niche? Do you have a niche or what? Well, or is it life or what?
Typically when I talk to people, it'll have faith centric themes, but it's more like I've talked to men. virtually. I will help them. Usually it's when they're in seasons of transition out of a relationship.
Yeah.
Or trying to get into one. So it's like both sides. I give them advice. I did for years I was making content because I was inspired personally. My brother was going through something in his life. He was going through a divorce.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a lot of content creators speaking life into men in a healthy way.
Right.
And so I started putting men on game as if I was their big sis. And that was kind of where that came from. So in my mind, every time I did a piece of content, I'm thinking of my little brother. Every single time. Because I love my little brother. I would do anything for him.
Yeah.
And so I kept thinking of him. Like I would just, and that resonated with men.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where that came from, was me trying to build men up and put them on game and let them know what works, what doesn't. So I still bring them into coaching. There's men that want to know, like, you know, different things about dating, different things about relationships, different things about transitioning after divorce or transitioning into divorce, like all those big
So what's like a common theme that you found in coaching people or in your therapy sessions? Like, what's a common theme that you find,
you know,
when talking to people?
I think a common thing that I and this is like later on in life that I've understood this, but I think a lot of people settle. A lot of people settle. A lot of people settle in wildernesses when there's a promised land with their name on it.
That's a word.
I believe that because God's process is not our process.
No.
And God's process is a process. It's going to look like it's not going to happen at all before it happens. That's God's process. Why? Because in the Bible, it talks about in Hebrews how our faith is not based upon what we see. We walk by faith, not by sight. He says the faith is the confidence of things that we hope for, evidence of things unseen. That means that you are not going to see it, not going to experience. There's going to be no evidence, no understanding. Why? Because it mimics our relationship with him.
Wow.
We don't see him. We don't hear him verbally like that or audibly like how we think.
Right.
It's not this deep, dark voice. No, it's a voice within you. It's a prompting. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
And he talks to us in different ways.
Right.
But it's the evidence of things unseen. Yeah. He is the evidence of things unseen. And so every process that you go through with God, if it's a God promise, it's not going to be something that you see at all.
Yeah.
And it may be for a while. Yeah. Because as you grow in faith, he's going to try to give you the James 1 faith, the persevering faith, the faith that even though I don't see it, and I don't see it now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 5 years from now, I still believe.
Yeah.
I still believe you can do it. I still believe you can part Red Seas. I still believe that you are the God of the universe and you are not to be limited by me. Or by my thoughts, or by what everybody thinks is possible, or anybody's opinions about me. I still believe.
Yeah.
I still believe you are a limitless God. Right. And we put limits on God because of our intellectual understanding of the world. Yeah. And so I've had an issue even with therapy because for me, we teach coping mechanisms, and at times those coping mechanisms do not speak to a spiritual framework.
That's that part. That's the part.
Yes. Because I think that when we're talking about, like, for example, because of a lot of the disappointments I've experienced, I had such a fear of disappointment.
Yeah.
I had such a I've had paralyzing fear of not wanting to be disappointed, not wanting to be vulnerable, not wanting to put myself out there. Just like I had this guard up, like where, like, I'm going to give you as much, and you might think I'm giving you a lot, but I'm actually, it's a calculated risk. Like I'm giving you as much as I've mentally allowed myself and give myself permission to give.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you more than that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing because the Bible does speak to guarding our hearts above all things, for out of it flows the rivers of life.
Yeah.
I believe for myself that in therapy, I was taught take the facts of a situation and make the best decision based upon facts. That way, I wouldn't be in a situation where I was disappointed or as disappointed because I'm taking a calculated risk. When you're in kingdom, without faith, it is impossible to please God.
That's right.
So it taught me to not walk in faith at all. It taught me to walk in worldly wisdom.
Wow.
So when you're, I always say.
So this is what's being taught in therapy.
Of course, yeah.
So how does that, so that basically contradicts the whole kingdom system.
100%.
So how do you
reconcile that?
Yes. How do you combine that? How do you navigate that space as a clinical therapist and, also helping people, giving people practical ways to overcome?
Yeah. So there's different modalities, of course, that people can subscribe to. When I'm working with people, I can choose to work from a framework of hope. And I do that. I come from, there's a thing called motivational interviewing and there's reality theory and there's like different, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like changing your thoughts will then change your feelings, which then change your actions. So when
that's aligned with biblical,
yes, absolutely,
scriptures.
Mm-hmm. So like depending on the person's modality, you can still be a therapist and do, things that are aligned with scripture or aligned with faith.
Right.
I was just being taught in therapy because of my paralyzing anxiety that I should do it a certain way.
Yeah.
To prevent me from experiencing that and feeling more confident about my decision making. Because when I went through a traumatic relationship, at the end of that relationship, I had no faith. Because of the nature of the relationship, I had no faith in my decision making. I just felt like I couldn't make a good decision to save my life.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn to be confident in that. And so I don't fault what I was taught.
Right.
However, going, kind of coming from a different framework faith-wise, you have to go in a completely different direction.
You do.
Because you may have no facts to back up your belief. But if God gave you that word, you go with it.
That's right.
So it's a different.
What's something that you've started doing, like a habit that completely changed your life? Like one or two things that you just started doing. You're like, oh, my life is better outside of your relationship with God.
Right.
Just anything.
Intentionally dreaming again. Intentionally dreaming again.
You said again.
Again.
Was there a time where you weren't dreaming?
No, because I was afraid of being disappointed.
We were talking about this.
We talked a little bit.
A little bit. We touched on it.
I challenged you a little bit. But
yes.
I realized, so at the end of last year, I have an assistant that I work with, and she was talking about, let's get the vision board out. Let's, start thinking about what we want, what goals that we have, things like that. And I'm like, something inside me was like, yeah, let's do that. I hadn't done that in years.
Right.
Because I was so afraid of hoping. I was so afraid. I have had so many episodes where I'm like, I'm just so afraid of being disappointed. I'm so afraid of being disappointed. Like,
yeah. Like how many more disappointments do I have to go through until I get to see the real thing of what God has for me? Like,
right. And I have a perspective on that,
Share it. Because and then we're going to be done.
Listen, I could go. Y'all know I could talk.
Then we're going to be done. Like how do you still have the hope after so many disappointments, or you don't or do you start questioning the promise? Is this really what God has for me? How do you continue to stay in hope after so much disappointment?
So first part to this is like basically going back to dreaming again and hoping again, being intentional about that. Right. I want to make sure that that's clear.
Right.
God cannot move until you start dreaming. He doesn't, without faith, it is impossible to please God.
Yeah.
Meaning that until you not a dream you can do, not a dream you just got to put the right things in motion. Until you allow yourself, as you're seeking God, he gives you the desires of your heart. He gave you those desires, and he gives you those desires.
Yeah.
And so with that, if I believe and I trust that, I stand in the space of like, okay, God, give me a dream again. Tell me what you want for me. Let me stop trying to throw things out the woodwork and making it make sense for me because of what they did or what somebody else did. What about what you want for me?
Yeah.
I want to start dreaming again. And so dreaming again is imperative.
Yeah.
Imperative to have to start the process with God. Because, you have faith again. You believe in that again?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go through a process.
Because dreaming allows you to see something that's beyond your circumstances.
100%.
Almost like a vision.
Yes.
And then when you start believing that, you start working towards the things that you are believing that you see.
Well, what happens then is, which I did not understand, is that process begins.
Yeah.
So as soon as soon as you say to God, I'm ready to start dreaming and hoping for something better again.
Yeah.
He then says, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
And how long will you believe for me for it?
Yeah. Wow.
And what I've learned about the process with God is that sometimes we want things so bad. And I'm just going to speak to my own thing. I'm going to speak to where I failed in the wilderness. Because God has given me a wilderness season. I failed. The reason why I failed was, first of all, there was a half step in obedience, meaning there was something that he was calling me to do in that season. And I'll just say it. There was a season where he was like, I don't want you talking. I don't want you dating. I'm like, okay, I won't date. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I'll still talk. I won't like go on a date, but I'll still communicate.
Yeah.
With some testosterone. Okay? I'll still communicate with that. But so I was still communicating. I wasn't seeing anybody in person, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But there was other things that very similar to this season that he's calling me to do.
Yeah.
But because I was half stepping that was a distraction, whether it was in person or not, it was still a distraction.
Yeah.
So what happens is, and I'll liken this back to the Israelites. When I went through that process, there was a moment where I thought things were going to happen for me. Like, finally, promised land. I'm here. It's this moment. It's going to happen. I'm so excited. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. I go in.
Yeah.
And literally, it shattered. An obstacle that I didn't even see coming came. I was devastated. I was devastated. I mean, literally almost to the point of just not wanting to do this anymore. Like, I just was like, I don't know about this life. I don't know about none of that. Like, I just was in despair. Yeah. I'm fasting. I'm praying. I'm doing all this stuff. And this happens.
Right.
Like, I literally was like, are you kidding me, God? Like, for real?
Yeah.
I was like, forget this. I'm going to go back to what I was doing before.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do this no more. Let me go see the testosterone I've been delaying to see. Let me go ahead and just live my life and stop playing, like, doing this your way.
Yeah. Yep. Been there.
Bring it back to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
God showed me that in the wilderness, the Israelites are in the process. They're going to the promised land.
Right.
And they're struggling with unbelief. They're struggling with complaining, because complaining is one of the worst things you can do with God.
Yeah.
Unbelief, complaining, and just disobedience, And they call it harlotry. They were out there.
Yeah.
We made sexual immorality a catch-all phrase. What they were doing was that there was idol worship that was like basically like orgies before gods, essentially. And so they were doing that. They were idol worshiping with sexuality involved. Like, there was some gross stuff that was going on. I'm not gonna get into the details, but it was kind of gross if you really look into it. So essentially what happens is he still gives them an opportunity to enter the promised land. They go, they send the 12 spies. It's all in the first year. Yeah. Because the process between the process and the promise for them was only supposed to be a year.
Yeah. So
he sends 12 spies. They go to see the land. When they go see the land, there's an unforeseen obstacle. An unforeseen obstacle that they can either choose to still believe God for or not. What they did was they come back, they see these Nephilim.
Yes.
These giants that they did not expect
and we're
to
like,
see that.
What is this, God? Like,
we're supposed to be walk up in here and get it. What do you mean?
No, you got to fight for this.
He's like, I didn't tell you it was going to be easy.
Right.
But like he basically says, listen, Just like when you left Egypt, there was a process. I took you out of oppression, but now you've got to go through a process of trusting me.
Before the promise.
Before the promise. Now they're in the promised land. They're like, God's telling me it's our land. It's our land. We going to walk up in there. It's just us, blah, blah, blah. No one's going to be there. No. There's an unforeseen major obstacle, which is other opposition, big opposition that they do not in their own strength. They cannot overcome this obstacle without God. They come back and they say, 10 of them say, we can't do it. Mm-hmm. There's no way. That's impossible. Absolutely not. They go throughout the camp. They tell everybody in the camp, y'all, I don't know what they talking about. Caleb and Joshua, they on their own island. We don't believe that. We can't, there's nothing we can do with these giants. Right. They look like giants to us, and we look like grasshoppers to them, which is crazy because they were spies. No one saw them. So that's their own doubts manifesting, and they're speaking that over themselves.
And how many times do we do that?
Do it all the time. We do it all the time. We think it's impossible. We've been disappointed. We've been in this process, and we decide we are going to give up. We give up hope. And in that moment, the reason why they did not enter the promised land is because at that test, that pivotal test, they decided to give up. And it wasn't giving up in the sense of, oh, blah, 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 blah. The promised land was theirs. The thing is, they still had to believe God for the impossible.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just going to be, oh, you just going to take the land, because then it would be, we did it.
Right.
That means we as the Israelites, because we could just walked up in here, you could somehow take credit for what God's about to do. No, you're God's display. And there was a reason for that.
That's right.
And so what happened was their unbelief is what caught their unbelief, and their complaining about how hard it was, how long it's been. Where are you, God? I don't understand this. Blah, 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 blah. All that took them out of the promised land. He's okay, you're not ready. Because the process, we make it about outcomes. And when we make it about outcomes, when the outcome doesn't happen, or it does happen, we lose sight of God.
Yeah.
When you make the process and embrace the process for what it's supposed to do for you, what's supposed to create in you. My pastor said this on Sunday, and it changed my whole perspective. He said to me that an immature Christian is gimme, gimme, gimme. A mature Christian is make me. Make me. That when I'm in a situation and I'm going through a process, I'm not going to allow the fact that it's not happening fast enough, because now I've idolized the outcome.
Yeah.
I've idolized. No.
That's good. That's good.
The reality
is,
it
happens.
Because as soon as the outcome does not, or it looks like it's not, I give up. Forget, I don't see it, God. I don't see it. So he's like, okay, you didn't want it bad enough. Because if you allow me and embrace this, I'll bring you that. But wilderness is not about torturing you. Wilderness is not about making your life harder or doing all these different things. Wilderness is testing you to have the perseverant faith that James talks about in James 1. He says, I'm trying to be, he says, rejoice in trials and tribulations, so that it creates in you a persevering faith that perfects you.
It's a perfection.
He is not trying
a continual perfection 100%. Until we go home.
Until we leave. He said every day we're preparing for a greater glory that far outweighs them all. Yeah. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. Because for what is seen is temporary, for what is unseen is eternal. So what God is saying to us in wilderness seasons, what I didn't understand was that I was so dedicated to the outcome that as soon as God was testing me, do you really believe me? Do you really have faith in me? Yeah. That even when you see an obstacle, even when you see the Nephilim, even when you see these things, you're still going to say, I'm still going to go to the land. Because Joshua and Caleb had the right faith. Yeah. They didn't say there wasn't opposition there. They said, I still believe. And what happens is a lot of us, when we go through a wilderness season and God tests us, because as soon as you start to dream again, you're going to go through a process. What people say is, oh, promise. Well, God promises always going to happen. It's always going to happen. And you can't get out of God's promise for you. You can't do it. No. Why do you think the enemy attacks our mind the way he does? I asked God that the other day. I'm like, God, you want me to believe for this? But I feel like I'm dealing with doubt and negativity and discouragement. Every time I want to believe for something, there's something like, you can't do that. I don't see that. How? There's nobody here. You just going through the discouragement and the disbelief. I was like, why does he do that? And God showed me that if he can get you out of faith, he can get you out of promise. Because as soon as you choose not to believe him, as soon as you choose to say, I don't have faith for that anymore. I've been disappointed. I've been hurt. I just can't believe for that anymore. It literally hurts me to think of it. He's won.
Yeah.
The enemy won in whatever area that is. And I don't care who's watching me. Whatever area that is, that where God is calling you to believe him for. If the enemy can get you out of belief, and I'm not talking about casual belief. I'm not talking about, haphazard belief, whatever you want to do, God. I'm talking about specific, bold belief. I'm talking about the kind of belief that takes Lazarus out of the grave. I'm talking about the kind of belief that takes Jesus as on a cross and takes him and raises him up from the dead. I'm talking about the kind of belief that opens up a Red Sea. I'm talking about the kind of belief that literally just takes a David from being a shepherd into a king, an Abram to an Abraham, a Jacob into an Israel. I'm talking about the kind of belief, kind of belief that even though I'm facing all of this, and even though I've experienced all of this, it doesn't matter. I still believe. Not because of the circumstances. Those circumstances are not bigger than you. But the fact that there's opposition, the fact that there's so much that's getting in the way, God is going to use that. Why would the enemy be attacking me so much in that area if he didn't have something for me? That's what we have to say. If I've learned that when God speaks, we know it because there's probably not going to be a doubt that combats it. There's going to be a doubt that combats it. As soon as God gives you something, and if there's a voice that says, that's not going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. It's not going to happen. That is a God belief. And what we do is we allow that second voice to talk us out of the first voice. And I'm here to stomp on that because as soon as we get, and yes, there's going to be times that we don't believe, but God, if you look at in the Bible, he had never failed. He might not have had it when you wanted it to happen. And a lot of David didn't want to wait 22 years to become the king. Right. And Joseph didn't want to wait 12 years to allow his dream to be realized. And 7 years after that to really see the manifestation of his dream. None of these people wanted to go through process. But the reality is God elevated them when he felt like they had the character to steward the promise. So a lot of us are fighting process, and God's like, I'm not going to get you in a car until I know you can drive. Because I've seen what people do when they get you. That's the biggest deception of the enemy is that when he can promote you without process because he knows you can't handle it. So a wise God, if it's a God dream, it's always going to come with process. Why? Because he cannot give you that position of power until you understand what it means to drive that car and to drive it well. Otherwise, he wouldn't. I'm not going to let my daughter cook on the stove. She don't know how to cook on the stove. She don't know what to do, how to heat up the oil, none of that. If I'm not going to put her in the back seat of a car or the front seat of a car. I'm not going to let her drive. She's 6 years old. She doesn't have the height or the width or the ability or the capacity to be able. I would be setting her up to be destroyed. And that's what the enemy does. We see these quick promotions and we're like, dang, I want that. But how hard do they fall? How far do they fall? Because they got promoted without process. Every single person, if you think about it, if they had no process, they fell. Saul had no process, he failed. David had process, he won. That's just how it goes. You know, and we fight process. We don't allow the process to happen because it's not happening fast enough. Or we're not being patient with God, or we're half stepping in some form of obedience to where I don't see that happening. I mean, if I do this, like there's things he's calling me now to do. I'm like, God, I would never do this. But you know what? What it's creating in me, like once I stop fighting the process and the time frame and understanding, like I embraced it because my pastor said this. I have to say this before I get off this because this is important.
Okay.
He said on the stage, he said that make me, and I told you, make me, and then, you know, all that other stuff where he was talking about mature Christians say make me.
Right.
On the other side of that, he said that a lot of people are entrusting God for an outcome.
Yeah.
And that when we're entrusting God for an outcome, that's not wrong to believe in God for an outcome.
Right.
But he said that when we get into that and we're only in it for that, that's manipulation. That's not covenant. So if I'm believing God for one thing and I get all messed up, like, oh, I fasted, I prayed, this, that, so you're not going to give me what I want?
We were talking about fasting for the husband.
Yeah.
Like, is that I don't believe that is, I believe that's manipulation. If you're only fasting for a certain outcome because you fast to get closer to God, to kill the flesh, and to be more in the spirit with God.
One thing I'll say is that if you look at any promise in the Bible, from Abraham, he told David, you're going to be king.
Mm-hmm.
King. From that, every step of obedience was because of that dream. He always starts with a promise. He always does. All throughout the Bible, from the beginning to the end, it was always a promise. So no, God does start with his hand every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time he starts with his hand. It's never just, get to know me. He says to David, you're going to become king. He says to Abram, you're going to be the father of many nations. Follow me. Go to a land that you've never been to before. He starts, with Jacob, he's talking to him about his sons. When he goes to Joseph, he says, you're going to be second in command in Egypt. They said, I watched John Bevere speak about this, and I thought it was interesting. He was saying that every step of obedience that he took was in light of the dream. So it's not wrong to believe in God for something. He started every journey with everybody in the Bible, from Noah all the way down to Jesus. There was always a promise. Always a promise. So it's not wrong to believe in God for his promises or for the desires of your heart. The thing is that in that process of getting to promise, he wants you to be so into him that the promise doesn't even matter anymore. When, how, what, where, why. He wants you to be the problem. What happens is that when we desire the gift more than the gift giver, that's what he's trying to weed out of you. That's why the disappointments happen. That's why he allows that to happen, because he's like, I want you to want me and test you if you're going to still want me, even if this doesn't happen at the time, when you wanted it, with who you wanted it with.
Yeah.
So he allows these disappointments to happen to test your faith.
Yes.
That's a part of what it is. But to believe God, I ultimately want a husband, or I'm believing God for a husband. I'm believing God for this promise,
a house,
or whatever.
A car, a career,
it's
purpose,
not wrong.
All the things that we desire as humans.
Yes. And I believe if he gave you the desires of your heart, he gives you the desires of your heart. If you're aligned with him, I believe that he gives you the desires of your heart.
Well, that's what his word says. 100%. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart.
Exactly.
And he is not a man that he shall lie. And
the son of man that he would change his mind.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can end there. I think this episode is going to be called I Still Believe.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Where can they find you? Give us your information.
Sure.
Your
My
socials.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So you guys can find me at Love Samantha Lee. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. I go live every Monday and Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's me. That's me.
Thank you so much. And family, that is all we have for now. Until next time, until our next episode, God loves you so much, and so do I. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Hi, family. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Jordan's Journey podcast. If you would like to listen to the full audio version of the podcast, Jordan's Journey podcast can be found on all podcast platforms. If you would like to have access to the full audio and visual version of the podcast, make sure you join the Journey Academy, where faith meets education is our school for self-improvement. Not only will you gain access to the podcast, but a portal of higher vibrational content that helps you to improve in every area of your life. Join the Journey Academy today. God loves you so much, and so do I.